Avengers Age of Ultron, and again, I say Age of Ultron, is directed by Joss Whedon.
And this movie stars Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Jeremy Renner, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Scarlett Johansson, David Spade. David Spade. David Spade voices Ultron in this movie, right?
Oh my god. I can't even imagine that.
What if Adam Sandler creates Avengers and just replaces all the people with like Kevin James as like the Hulk?
No.
And like Nick Schwartzen as Captain America.
No, what if David Spade is freaking Adam Warlock?
Oh yeah,
they look similar.
I guess Adam Sandler could be Captain America.
Yeah.
Nick Schwartzen could be like Hawkeye.
Kevin James can be Hulk.
Yeah. And his wife, what's his name? Adam Sandler's wife could be like Scarlett Johansson. Black Widow.
Chris Rock can be Falcon. The guy who was on Even Stevens.
Yeah, he could be War Machine.
That's true. Rob Schneider has to be somebody though. He can be Rocket Raccoon.
And this movie stars Chris Evans, Robert Downey. I must say Robert De Niro. Christopher Evans. Is it Christopher or Christian?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Or it could be Christoph.
Christoph Evans?
That sounds like such a hipster.
Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Mark Ruffalo, Chris Hemsworth, Jeremy Renner, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emily Olsen, and David Spader.
Spader? It's James Spader.
And just so y'all guys know, if you go onto our channel, and especially our last video over the first Avengers movie, you'll notice that it has some of the most views, actually the most viewed video in our entire channel history. It has
2
over
years.
2,000 views right now. Over 2,000 views. And if you'll also notice, it has, as last time I checked, it has 20 dislikes. So we just like to let y'all know that this video is for Avengers Age of Ultron.
Not Infinity War.
Yes, because we are positive that people thought that video was a spoiler review for Avengers Infinity War.
So the past couple of weeks we've been trying to review a bunch of the MCU movies before Infinity War comes out. And unfortunately this will be the last one that we'll be able to review before Infinity War comes out tomorrow. But we'll be reviewing the rest of the MCU movies before Avengers 4 comes out next year. So I sort of have a love-hate relationship with this movie because the very first time I saw it in theaters, I remember afterwards I felt really disappointed with it. And then the second time I saw it, I actually really loved it a lot. And then I think I saw it again and I sort of saw some things that I didn't like. And sort of brought how much I loved it down a little bit. And then I didn't see it again for several years, which it came out 2015, which was 3 years ago. So that whole 3 year span, I just figured that I hated it. And then watching it again tonight, I realized how much I actually liked it. How much I didn't hate it as much as I thought I did.
I would say it is better than I thought, than I remember it being. Because, like I said, whenever I first saw this movie, I didn't like it at all. I will say it's better than I thought it when I remember it being, but I won't say I liked it necessarily. Right. I'll say it was pretty enjoyable. Enjoyable. It's not like I said enjoyable. Enjoyable, but I would say one really good thing about this movie that I can say is the best parts of this movie are better than the best parts of the first Avengers. Now, I do believe that the first Avengers is more consistent in its tone, and it's more consistent in being good all throughout. By the way, we have a dog, so he makes a lot of noise. Anyways, but I feel like the first Avengers, all throughout, it was pretty, it had its moments, not so good moments, but overall, it felt pretty consistent in the quality. I feel like this movie, even though it had its really great moments, especially the last fight scene, the fight scene at the end, I love. I absolutely love the last fight scene. It has its moments, but overall I love it. Even more than the fight scene in the Avengers. But I feel like overall there's a lot of times where it just drops down in quality all of a sudden. And it kind of picks back up, then drops back down. Picks back up, drops back down. And that's my main issue with this movie.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this, which I'm actually surprised at myself saying it. Because I wouldn't think that I would say this these past 3 years. But after watching it again tonight, and watching the first Avengers 2 or 3 nights ago, I actually enjoyed Age of Ultron a little more than the first Avengers. I won't say that Age of Ultron is a better movie per se, because Age of Ultron had a few more really weird decisions that we'll get into later than the first Avengers movie did. But I actually just overall enjoyed Age of Ultron more. I think one of the main things that I sort of remembered wrong that I thought I didn't like as much was the character of Ultron. I thought whenever when I saw the movie in the theater, I thought he made more jokes, more cringy jokes than he did. And after rewatching it, he didn't make as many as I remembered, and the jokes he did make weren't as super cringy that I remembered.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I might keep saying this, hopefully not, but just like you, I felt like he wasn't as bad as I remember him being, but I still didn't necessarily like him that much. I felt like there wasn't much of a threat with this character. I mean, obviously, at the end of the movie, he's about to drop this big island from Earth onto the Earth to kill everybody. But other than that part, which all villains have that. All villains have this little big thing, and then you're like, oh man, and he's not going to do it. But overall, he just never felt like a threat to me.
Yeah, I will say I did feel a threat from him, but I didn't feel as much of a threat that I should have from him. I do think that they did do a good job of making him a compelling villain because he was evil, obviously, but you could just tell that he felt like he was doing the right thing. They didn't make him like this murder robot who just wants to exterminate humans. They actually made him sort of compassionate. You could tell he had compassion towards Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, and you knew he felt like he was doing the right thing. But it's just that what he was doing was really horrible.
James Spader was perfectly casted for the role of Ultron. Whenever I saw the trailers, I thought he was going to be perfect. And for this movie, I still think his voice is perfect. I still think he was perfect. I don't necessarily think his lines were perfect all throughout. I don't think the writing was perfect. I just like James Spader's voice as Ultron.
Which, since you brought the trailer up, I think that's probably one of the reasons why I felt so disappointed the first time, is because the trailers were such a different tone than the actual movie was. At least the first trailer was like a really serious and dark tone, and it's actually one of my favorite trailers of all time, in all honesty. And then the movie came out as a more comedic tone, and I think that's why I felt so disappointed.
And again, one of my biggest complaints with all of Marvel movies practically is they always have humor that cheapens scenes. I feel like Thor Ragnarok probably did it the most, but this movie still did it, and it didn't do it as much as I remember, but it still did it at scenes where there's scenes that can have this weight to them, this dramatic weight, and you're watching, you're like, this is a pretty good scene, it's really well written, and they'll throw a joke in because I guess they don't want people to actually feel that weight. They want people to kind of feel it, but they don't want people to actually be able to carry that weight on them for that scene. And so it just kind of cheapens scenes a lot of times. Like there's that scene, and like the running joke of the language from Captain America. I didn't mind it the first 2 or 3 times. I understand these are people. I understand that people, especially friends, will joke around with each other. But there's scenes in the movie where they're in Hawkeye's house, and I believe Nick Fury's talking to them, and he's talking about this speech, and it's a really good speech. And then one of them throws out that language joke all of a sudden, and it kind of just all the weight and all the drama just dissipates from the scene.
Talking about the farm scene in general, it's a big portion of the movie, and I actually don't mind it because it actually makes sense in the context of the movie, because they have to have a place to hide since the Hulk just went rampage mode. But after a while of them being there, it just started feeling like they only had that scene or that whole portion just to make you feel about Hawkeye, since I guess they realized that a lot of people don't really care about Hawkeye since he's pretty pointless to the Avengers. But they had this whole speech of him with his wife talking about the Avengers need him, he doesn't need the Avengers. Yeah. And it's like, and the funny thing is, even after that, he doesn't really do anything for the rest of the movie.
I think it's one thing with Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, other than convincing Scarlet Witch to become an Avenger. So I guess that's the real thing that why the Avengers need a Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Is to convince more powerful people to join the Avengers.
Yeah. This movie does have a lot of scenes where they're very unnecessary to the story. I really feel like about 30 minutes could have been cut off from this movie. Just the party scene in general, I felt like it was too long. They focused too much on the party, and then they had that whole scene after the party where they're all trying to pick up Thor's hammer, which I felt like lasted way too long. And then one of my least favorite scenes, probably my least favorite scene in the whole movie, is whenever Thor goes into this cave to like he gets like shocked by all this stuff and he starts thinking and starts he starts thinking about the Infinity Stones and starts imagining them. And I feel like that had nothing to do with this movie at all. It was extremely forced in there, especially since Dr. Selvig wasn't in this movie at all until that one scene, and that was it.
Yeah, it did honestly feel like a scene that would be on the Blu-ray as the deleted scene, and you watch and you're like, okay, I understand why they cut that out.
Yeah, but like it just like Dr. Selvig's only in that scene throughout the entire movie. He brings them there, and he starts remembering these. But I feel like with Infinity Stones, there's like 6 of them, right? Yeah. So I feel like they could have explained each of them in the movie they were in. You know? Right. And even if not that, you have Infinity War coming out just tomorrow. So, I mean, I feel like they could have just saved them for that even. And maybe not saved them that, because that might be too much information. But they could have just broken it all throughout all the movies, explained what they are. Maybe not outright, but we would soon enough know what they are.
And wasn't it funny how the Thor vision that Scarlet Witch gave him for Ragnarok was pretty like emotional and dark and actually really good. And then the actual Thor Ragnarok movie came out and it sort of wasn't.
Those visions though in this movie are actually some of my favorite parts. I totally forgot about those all of a sudden. But I love those visions of this movie. They were actually like really like dark and creepy, you know, and I really like it.
I actually added to a lot of the characters. Yeah. You learn more about them, especially like Black Widow.
Yeah, and I love that because Black Widow's character, because they could have done a lot of times when they do like explaining characters, they do kind of forced. But I really feel like I learned minimal about her, you know, but the most in the best way. And you know what my favorite thing about this movie is, Zach, is that, you know, from the very first Avengers movie, we have been set up the relationship between Black Widow and Hulk. that relationship totally was built up, correct?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially because that's why Nick Fury sent her in Avengers to go pick him up. That's obvious, right?
That relationship was one of the most forced things I've ever seen in my life. I didn't even understand what was going on when I first watched this movie because it was just so out of nowhere. Yeah, you know, and if you want to build a relationship like that, especially if it starts off like with a boom, like they already know, they're already like loving each other. Yeah. But build something up in the first Avengers. They didn't build anything up. The only time we've seen them together is in the first Avengers in this one.
And plus, where's Betty Ross?
And I feel like it could have been done well. And it would have been really cool. Because as I was watching it, some of the scenes that where they were together in were actually really good. Mm-hmm. The scenes that were showing the relationship, how they loved each other, was really good. But it's just that I felt nothing to it because I had nothing to back it up with. Right. You know, and they kind of tried to put that in Thor Ragnarok, you know, but you didn't feel anything there. And I'm hoping they can figure out something because they can't just drop it because they already have it. You know, so in Infinity War, they have to have something between Bruce Banner and Black Widow. Otherwise, it's just going to be random, just a drop off. You know, you can't just get rid of it.
And one of the dumb decisions I was talking about was how they have the fastest guy on the team, Quicksilver, who can run faster than anyone else, and they have him die by just being shot by regular bullets. It's not even like special bullets.
Well, I didn't have an issue with him being killed by bullets. I felt that was fine. The issue was, instead of pulling Hawkeye out of the way, he decides to run in front of the bullets. If you can save the dude by just running and pulling him out of the way. There was even a scene where he was doing that.
Where he's pulling people away from a train.
Yeah, the train was just coming. He was just pulling so fast.
And it's a couple of scenes before, too.
Yeah, so I mean, he had time to look at Hawkeye and notice he was, because there's a scene, he looked down back at Hawkeye. Okay, let me run in front of the bullets. And that scene was ridiculous. What was even more ridiculous after the scene is whenever Hawkeye just kind of laid him down on the ground and they didn't talk about it at all.
And they didn't even cover him up with a blanket or anything.
Now that we're on the subject of the twins, I do want to talk about Scarlet Witch. I feel like almost everybody was casted correctly except for Emily Olsen. I don't think she's a bad actress. Her acting isn't bad in this movie, but she just does not have an accent. Her Russian accent just flies all over the place.
Was she supposed to be Russian or I don't know what kind of accent she's
Russian or I can't. I'm not positive. The accent she had was just all over the place. Like she would go to it and then sometimes it would kind of slightly come off, and sometimes it's just gone completely. And the thing is, I would understand if maybe they like gave her an accent that wasn't strong, but they gave her a strong accent. So the times whenever it was on strong, but then it would like go away. And so her accent was just really bad in this movie, and I really feel like she hasn't really stepped it up with her accent since this movie.
Two minor things that I thought were sort of bad in the end fight scene were, one, I didn't really like Ultron's, I didn't really like the overall design of his final form, and I also thought the CGI was a little bad. It was just very distracting. And also the CGI on Iron Man was also pretty distracting. But the second thing is, where the heck was Falcon in the final fight scene? He was like non-existent there. And he was even in the party scene at the beginning of the movie, so they obviously didn't forget about him.
He was also at the end of the movie where he's Avengers, and he stops, like...
Was he just eating breakfast or something? And I also like how they did Vision's character and how he sort of respects Ultron, and he doesn't necessarily want to kill him, but at the same time he knows that he has to be stopped.
And whenever this movie tries to set up stuff, like kind of like the Thor with Thor going into the cave scene, they tried too much to set up stuff. They tried too much to do world building. It's way too much, and I understand. I would completely understand trying to build up for Civil War. They have a few scenes like that in here, but they kind of come out of nowhere. They're kind of randomly pushed in there, and they're kind of it's really ham-fisted in a lot of these scenes, and that's a really big issue for me in this movie as well. So guys, to be honest, I really don't love this movie. I do find it enjoyable enough, but I do find it to have a lot of issues. But if you do like Marvel movies overall, I think you haven't seen this, I do think you enjoy this movie. It is pretty fun to watch. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Avengers Age of Ultron is 75% awesome.
Yeah, as I said throughout this review, I did like this movie a lot more than I remembered, but at the same time it did have its issues where they just threw in random, they had random decisions, and just the comedy sort of took over the movie and distracted. But I honestly probably would put it in my top 10 Marvel movies. So I'm going to say that Avengers Age of Ultron is 82% awesome.
So guys, get ready for Friday. It might be either the morning or the afternoon, but we're going to have our review up for Avengers Infinity War. We are so excited, and just to let y'all know, again, this will be our first review over Avengers Infinity War. So go ahead and check that out when we have it up. We are so excited to watch the movie. We've been this movie is moving
10 years in the making.
10 years, man. Insane. Anyways, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Maybe even click that notification button if you like this. Also, if you still think this is Infinity War review, go ahead and talk crap to us all you want to. That's fine. Also, guys, comment below and tell us what you thought about Avengers Age of Ultron. Where would you rank it in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
And don't forget to follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 2 Awesome Men.
And as always, thank you so much for watching, and you will see us later.